My name is Jessie Sylvester. I come from the Buffalo River Dene Nation. Sezi asagant ai Jessie Sylvester hushie. Ejuridesh chehot in Dene suntline hesli. I balad I sezi ot I anad Dene hesli hi. Nuen iltuet en sezi kati yelene. Arizona hulie doke Denanarate. Ayer sezi sagant ya nena pas es eti. Kui dizinu ni translate ahili hada. Tsakui asiba darut ehile. Sezi sagant balade seti kui. Bedeyole chu ya tint une dasushilini. So basically my indigenous ceremonial name is warrior woman, is what I translated just now to. As a child, I grew up on the land. My parents practiced the nomadic way of life. And so I knew no English until I was 6. Prior to that, we lived on the land and we never had a house. We basically lived in tents, and our main transportation was the rivers. So we traveled in a canoe, and my father had a boat too. And so, and as children, we were given roles in terms of what to do as we're growing up and how we can sustain ourselves as Dene people. But we didn't find it as a chore. It was who we were and what was expected of us. So we would haul water, we would haul wood. If my father went rabbit snaring, we'd all be there. We'd all be given a snare, so we knew how to snare the rabbits. Everything was in the language. We had no contact with the settlers that have arrived, and never heard no English whatsoever until we were taken away. Of the 5 of us, 4 of us were taken away. I think it was in 1966 or 67, and that's the very first time we heard English. And for the very first time, that's when we saw the non-Indigenous peoples, and that was the priest and the nun. And they came in their black, sleek car. And that's where the English, I learned English, and quite rapidly I picked up on English and I love to read, and that was probably my way of coping with the loneliness that we all experience at the residential schools, because our parents were not there, and so that was my way of dealing with the loneliness, was isolate myself in a corner and just read, and I did a lot of that. This language is spoken also in northern Manitoba. Around the Lac Brochet area, we have the Dene also, and they were known as the T'es He Uli, but because again it was anglicized, and that's where they called it Lac Brochet. So our Dene language, right from, like I said, right from the southwest into the Apache and the Navajo are all Dene also. So if I travel to Arizona, I can communicate with the Dene, the Navajo there, and again I could travel to Alaska and communicate with the Dene out there too. So we do have many names, like I said, the Dene, the Navajo, the Apache. There's the Chippewan, there's the Athabascan, and then we have the Gwich'in and the Dogway. You know, we're at a time where our language needs to be heard. We need to continue speaking it, advocating it, and writing it, and translating it, and be with the elders, always to make connection, to go back to the land and be with the land. And that's where the interconnectedness of who we are as Indigenous peoples, as Dene people, is where we feel in tune with the land, because that's who we are. And the elders remind me that, Jess, you're living in a city, but be mindful, you need to get back to the land. And so I frequent the land in the ceremony, because I didn't grow up in ceremony. Being in the residential school, there were no ceremonies. There were no eagle feathers. There were no sweetgrass. There was no smudging. Unheard of. Until I began my studies at university, then I realized, oh my goodness, like, gee whiz, I'm Dene, like, and I'm living a non-Indigenous life. The way I speak, the way I dress, what I ate, my thoughts. So it took me many years, and I'm still unlearning and relearning who I am as a Dene woman, as a Dene warrior. And personally, it was a hard journey. It was a really tough journey. I had to relearn and undo so much that it brought so much pain. So with this whole the journey of decolonizing, as I said, it's probably one of the loneliest journeys that I'm on. And with where I'm at, I don't think I'll ever go back to being that little girl that was taken away at the age of 6 and conformed to the colonial ways of everything, and not ever being taught who I am as a little Dene girl. And we were silenced. We were not allowed to speak up and be heard. Well, when I first got the email from Ottawa, I was really excited. It really excited me. And then I thought, dang, like the Pope, it was something that I had to really take into ceremony, and so I could fully understand the purpose of why I have to travel to Ottawa. And it took me many years to leave the church because of the guilt they've instilled in me. And so I talked to a few elders, and they said that your language will be heard, Jess. People are going to hear your language in Canada. And so that encouraged me. There are times I did get emotional because I thought about my parents also. But personally, for myself, emotionally, I just had some angry moments of like, how dare you yet? And like, you're not being honest. Like, be honest to our people and be truthful. Like, you shouldn't have to read from the paper, because our people always say if we want to apologize, it should come from the heart. It shouldn't be something that someone else wrote and you're reading it, because there's that disconnect automatically. There were some real emotional times, but that's to be expected. And of course, many of us were angry when we got back there, but we had to be careful. And as soon as you're in the booth, it's my job is to translate and push aside my angry emotions for the moment. I was in the residential school for 10 years of my life, and so basically what I learned up to the time I graduated in 1978, it was all the colonial Western way of teachings, and I learned to speak and articulate well in English also, but at the same time I maintained my Dene language almost in silence too. And so when we were doing the translating for the Pope's visit, it brought back some ugly memories. And a lot of them were not very good, with the abuses that have happened while they were there. And they were revered as, the priests were revered as the holy ones that never did wrong. It was the loneliness and feeling isolated came back when I saw all the priests and the Pope, very patriarchal, straight men. And I almost felt kind of sick looking at them and then I thought, how can our people still kneel down and bow down and allow these people to conform their way of thinking it? That made me angry. Because I reflected back as a child. We were segregated. My sister and I together, Marlene, and my brother James and Delbert is the youngest. We weren't allowed to see one another, so those came back. There's always going to be our memories. We have triggers almost every day, and I know we're told that, get on with your life, Jess. Well, I have gone on with my life. I feel I'm educated now with, a Bachelor of Education degree. I have my master's degree, and I just attained my doctorate degree. But the memories will always be there. As much as you try really hard to forget, the smell of a cigar will trigger the priest sitting behind a desk where, molestations took place. Those kind of things, eh? Old furniture, the smell of the old furniture, the long drapes that, flashbacks all the time that we see every day. We go into buildings, it's like, oh my God, just give me a few seconds. And people don't understand. This is an everyday thing for a lot of the survivors, the warriors that are out there. They're fighting to be who they are and regain who we are. And so those memories came back, as we're sitting there, and I had to maintain my composure and translate the best I could. But when the team got together, we became a family with the 23 of us that were there. And with the Cernak team, a beautiful team we had. I know they do have statistics, and we have done them within our own nations. Right now, we haven't completely lost it, but we can't get too comfortable with where we're at. We still need to encourage our educators and our leaders to really put our language and our culture and our ceremonies in the forefront, because if that is not encouraged, then we're in crisis also, and we're almost there. So now with land-based teachings that are happening, many of the children are back out on the land, and I must encourage our land-based educators and teachers to speak the language out there and have the children participate with the hunts and let them actually to do the skinning, the cleaning, and what needs to be done to be brought back home. We need to really put our minds together collectively and strategize in terms of what are some ways that we can help to revitalize our indigenous languages and our Dene Tsohkline language. I would really encourage to have the Dene languages spoken in schools, work areas, in the stores, in the band office, conducted in the language, the meetings to be conducted in the language, our radio stations to have the languages spoken at all times. We really need to advocate for who we are with the languages and really fight for it and do what we can with to reawaken, what's been put to rest.